Alright, this is going to be a very, very interesting video. It's going to be two products I got here. One of them is actually something that I finally obtained in my hands, and the other one is actually a replacement for my other one. So, in this, I'll show you these two mischievous quarry twins. You guessed it, it is going to be about Bill and Ben. The ones you're seeing here are the Hit Toys versions. Now let me go ahead and explain about these two twins. Alright, let's first talk about Ben. I want to talk about Ben first. Now, Ben, as we see here, these, like I said, these are indeed used products, so there might be some scuffing here and there, but I say for the most part, I think these twins are, I think they're actually in pretty good nick, even though there might be some wear and tear on the scratches, like on the stickers, and there might be some scuffing like here, and might be some paint chips, but that's not a lot. These models are actually pretty decently, well, they're actually, of course, were well played. There were a lot of wear and tear, so these are indeed used, but for the most part, they look good. So like I said, one of them is a replacement, while the other one is actually what I finally got in my possession. Ben you're seeing here is the replacement. On the side here, as the licensing info is there, it says Hit Toy Company, Bill/Ben, made in China, 2006. Everything is carried from the original Tomy version. Of course, these were made by Tomy. There's a top view of it. Now, every time everyone sees models of Bill and Ben online up for sale, there's always a lot of wear and tear, like seeing a lot of yellow spots right here on the buffer beam. Well, the thing is, the buffer beam here and the entire red part here is part of the mold of the cab. And the stuff here that is all yellow is the original base color. And this part is painted red, as well as the black parts here is also part of the mold of the cab. So even that was all yellow. So it's pretty much red paint here, all yellow, painted red, and that was painted black. So a little bit of be careful with these models. You can see we have the sort of China Clay Company, which is good. There's Ben's nameplate. Looks very good on both sides. And I really do love that black part right there in the middle. Even though the back of it's not painted, it should be also with this brown paint. Should also be right here, but Tomy did that. And that's been carried over from the Hit Toys version as well. So for the most part, it's actually pretty good nick, even though with a lot of scuffs. Now, next up is Bill. Now this one is actually new to my possession. I never had Bill at all. I had Ben. I will show you that model later, and show you why I need to replace that model. Now Bill actually has a lot more usage than Ben here. Some of the red lining on here on like the boiler is all like scuffed off, and you can kind of see some paint chips right there on the buffer beams. And of course, that's to prove that this is part of the mold of this, and the yellow is the base color. And we have his nameplate, which is a little bit coming off of mine a little bit, but that's the name. It's Bill, and again, everything else is just the same, just might some minor scuffing on this one. Nameplate is Bill. Everything else is just the same as Ben. Top view of Bill. You have the bottom leaf of it. Again, no different. It just says Hit Toy Company, Bill Ben, made in China, 2006. There's the top view again. Might be some scuffing here and there. I can clean that off and probably restore this to its full glory. But everything else is just the same as Ben. It's just the nameplate's different to Bill. Now, I want to explain about the releases of these two twins. Ben was the first to be released in 1999 or 1998. It has to be one of those year dates. He was sold normally in the pack that contains two troublesome trucks with their respective cargo in Japan. Now, the problem is, Playwell has this unusual way of releasing the other twin, but the other twin gets left out. And it's not just Bill and Ben. The same thing is applied with Donald and Douglas and Bash and Dash. When they release one of the twins normally, but the other twin gets sold in a playset. The twins that you usually will get normally is Ben, Donald, and Dash. But Bill, Douglas, and Bash were only sold in the playsets. Only for like a short period of time and never again. Bill was released in this playset and only this playset. When this series was sent to International, they made Bill and Ben normally. So everyone was able to get Bill and Ben through normal means. And from Fisher-Price, they did make some minor things. Like, to differentiate Bill and Ben, they seem to look exactly the same because they have the same faces. Fisher-Price changed the eyebrows of Ben to look a little bit different. They were two different version releases for Bill and Ben from Fisher-Price. Now, I will now go show you my original Ben that I had. Like I said, this is a replacement. This is what I finally got. My old Ben is here. This is actually my old Tomy Ben. This is what I had for a long time, and it's still with me today. And it was indeed how I got my Tomy Ben. It was here. However, I got it in the Trackmaster packaging, and I still know what it looked like. Now, the reason why I want to replace this model of Ben is, well, not because of the face. That is meant to look like a 16. However, when I got my Tomy Trackmaster Ben, it was very defective. In fact, it was defective out of box. What happened is that whenever time I put in a new battery, Ben would just go slow as a snail. Every time I put in a new battery, he's very slow. And then I found out why. Here is that part. It's coming from this exact component with the motor. Now, I have done some testing, and I have discovered that when I put a battery in here, make sure that the metal contacts are touching correctly, the motor was still going very slow. But all of a sudden, I pushed this down, and the motor somehow was starting to pick up some speed. It's not going into its appropriate speed that it should have been how I got it. So it was getting faster and faster. It started seeing this going at appropriate speed now. But when I turned it back up, it was still going slowly again. So what happened is that this one had a bad soldering job. They didn't solder this properly. And it was hitting the contacts so lightly that it was going very slow. So that was why my model was defective. It was a bad soldering job on the motor. Mine actually has a few more scuffing than first glance. Part of the red lining right here on my original is always starting to scrape off. And I took the coupling out, but the thing is, this part here is all broken. You want to be very careful when assembling Bill and Ben, or taking this part off. Make sure you actually slide it out this way. Because if you put it down here, the bottom part here breaks. So you need to be very careful with that. Make sure you slide it in and don't go downwards like that, or you'll break the bottom part. A lot more scuffing right there. Yeah, mine's a little bit more of a worse condition. And also, the smooth gear that is on the axle is also split in two, so it doesn't run correctly. And because of all this, I then decided to just go and get a replacement. And thus I did. Alright, now we're going ahead and put the batteries into these two twins. Alright, this should be easy. These are, of course, our flat drive units, and so they all take a AA battery. Turn it on. Nope, it works like a chime. There might be some minor buzzing, but that's probably just the gear that's on the motor shaft is split in two, and thus is causing that buzz. But very strong, indeed. So that's part of the bill. And now, go ahead and put a battery in Ben. As per usual, it's the same thing, but now we just put Ben. Again, it's just the gear on the motor is just split on this one. And, well, that's probably also the worst case scenario, that the gear's so split it now spins freely if that is clutched. But at least it still works. Those gears can be replaced. So let's take those to the layout. Here is that Trackmaster layout that I created. It's a lot more bigger, and I also got a small little yarn over there. And I say this will be good enough to test out these two twins. Very nice indeed. So, let's go ahead and turn them on. A newly acquired Bill and a properly working Ben. well, that's gonna be it for this video. I finally obtained Bill, and I got a replacement Ben in my possession. Well, I really do enjoy having Bill and Ben. And finally, getting the last twin, new Ben. I'm very grateful. So, that's gonna be it for this video. See you later!